as we
It was so
flip.
crazy, because every verse was an AI,
Scene.
AI created it, so Joseph changed his looks from every verse was a different Joseph.
That's cute.
A different Pharaoh, and they went from.
All right.
It was funny. We watched the Saturday Night Live version, of the Nativity, which was really interesting.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. All right. Should have my microphones up. Ooh. Good. Microphone. Good. Yeah. All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are in Mikeitz, Torah study with Rashi. Good Shabbos, Rebbitzin. So, yay, a lot of things going on. We are in the 6th day of Hanukkah. Of course, tonight we start the 7th. Hope everybody is having a good time with that. I know that my wife is taking her life into her hands now that we're past the 4th day of Hanukkah. And if your shamash is in the center, you know, and you're going down the row, and then we have this big, huge, ginormous petrified wood Hanukkah. It's a little bit easier. It's just messy to put in the oil every day.
So does it hold just enough oil so that it burns? Okay.
It
I was like that.
It burns, yeah, it burns through the oil every night.
Yeah, okay.
So, but it's fun. It's fun. I like the oil the way it burns. And you like that there's no wax? I'm telling you, that oil can be, depending on the type of candle you have, that oil can be messy too. Anyway. Mikeitz. We're in the middle of Yosef's story. He is, where is Yosef now, by the way? Right now.
Prison.
He's in prison. In Egypt. So that's where we're at. And we just ended last parsha with what? What did we end last parshas with? Dreams. I'll give you a hint. We're dealing with dreams, right? Which dreams was Yosef dealing with?
The baker and the butler.
Yeah, the cupbearer and the baker, yeah. Remembering that matters because that's where this story picks up, kind of like midstream, so if you know, understand what happened prior would be helpful. That just goes, I mean, that should be natural that, you know, we're following everything in Torah, that you would be always understanding what's in the proximity of the parashot.
Do we have any hints how long Joseph was in prison?
We do actually have hints of how long Joseph has been in prison. Right? Well, if you look at the time frame about how many years, well, how old was he when he got down there, got down to Egypt, was like 17, 18 years old. And then how old was he when he got out and was
30.
He was 30. So
Before Pharaoh, but
yeah.
how long was he at Potiphar's?
Well, if you look at the time frame of if he went down to Egypt around 17 years old,
Right.
and he got out of prison do I know how long he was actually?
Was it half and half? Potiphar and
Oh.
or Potiphar's for 2 years? Or?
Yeah, there are numbers out there. I just can't place it on the top of my head. I'm thinking 10 years.
Huh.
But 10 years in prison? I can't remember off the top of my head. Because he was in prison for quite a bit.
But he was in charge of the prison.
Yes, he got raised up in the prison as a trustee, if you will.
Potiphar's long enough to be in charge of it.
Rebbitzin, do you hear my microphone or do you hear like other people around? Just let me know if my microphone is actually working, because I don't know.
Well, hard to get.
Okay.
So Joseph was in
So
2 years, yeah.
we're going to, chapter 41 is the start. Okay. At the end of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing beside the Nile River, and there came up out of the river 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they began feeding in swamp grass. After them, they came up out of the river 7 more cows, miserable looking and lean. They stood by the other cows at the edge of the river. Then the miserable looking and lean cows ate up the 7 sleek fat cows. At this point, Pharaoh woke up. But he went to sleep again and dreamt a second time. 7 full, ripe ears of grain grew out of a single stalk. After them, 7 ears of thin and blasted by the east wind sprang up, and the thin ear swallowed up the 7 ripe ears. Then Pharaoh woke up and realized it had been a dream. In the morning, he found himself so upset that he summoned all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one there could interpret them for him. Then a chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today reminds me of something wherein I am at fault." Pharaoh was angry with his officials and put me in the prison of the house of the captain of the guard, me and the chief baker. One night, both I and he had dreams, and each man's dream had its own meaning. There was with us a young man, a Hebrew, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us. He interpreted each man's dream individually, and it came about as he interpreted to us. I was restored to my office, and he was hanged. Oh, Rebinson, I was wondering if you could hear other people or you can just hear me. I was just asking if my cupbearer. I was asking if my microphone was working or if it's just on the microphone of the phone. That's why. Seeing if, making sure my microphone, I was late putting it on, so hello. Okay, anyway. Then Pharaoh summoned Joseph, and he brought him quickly out of the dungeon. He shaved himself, changed his clothes, and came into Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and there was no one who can interpret it. But I've heard it said about you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It isn't in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer that will set his mind at peace." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream, I stood at the edge of the river, and there came up out of the river 7 cows, fat and sleek." You know what? I'll stop right there. Fat and sleek. Does that even make any sense?
They have good
Sleek
coat
is
on.
like their coats.
Sleek, or their coats are sleek? Because
Nice
Yeah.
and shiny.
that's just
Well,
an
that's
interest.
all
That's
there,
an
but
interesting.
that's all
They're
there.
fed well.
It's an interesting word.
Yeah.
Fat and sleek. Because how can a fat cow be sleek? But
You gotta be into cows, Aaron.
I-
You gotta be into cows, yeah.
It might be saying you're not seeing its ribs.
Thank you, Rebinson.
Smooth.
I guess there's,
Well-
yeah. The Rebinson said that means the coats were shiny, which is what you guys are saying, which is fine. It just, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. But anyway. And yay, my microphone's working. Woo!
Gotta be around animals.
I got to be around animals.
Look at that cow, he's sleek.
Yeah, that's a sleek cow right there. Oh, okay, anyway,
Cows and
moving on.
small.
Okay, so here we go. Back to where I was at. Okay, 7 cows, and they began feeding in the swamp grass. I'm in verse 19. After them, there came up out of the river 7 more cows, poor, miserable looking, and lean. I've never seen such bad-looking cows in all the land of Egypt. Then the lean and miserable-looking cows ate up the first 7 fat cows. But after that, they had eaten them up. One couldn't tell that they had eaten them because they were as miserable-looking as before. At this point, I woke up, but I dreamed again, and 7 full, ripe ears of grain grown out of a single stalk. After them, 7 ears thin and blasted by the east wind sprang up, and the thin ear swallowed up the 7 ripe ears. I told this to the magicians, but none of them could explain it to me. So Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are the same. God has told Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, And the 7 good ears, as in ears, of grain are 7 years. Yeah. And the dreams are the same. Likewise, the 7 lean, miserable-looking cows that came up after them are 7 years, and also the 7 ears of, oh, I just lost my place. Yeah, so the 7, and blasted by the east wind, they will be 7 years of famine. This is what I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. Here it is. There will be 7 years of abundance throughout the whole land of Egypt, but afterwards there will come 7 years of famine, and Egypt will forget all the abundance. The famine will consume the land, and the abundance will not be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, because it will be truly terrible. Why was the dream doubled for Pharaoh? Because the matter has been fixed by God, and God will shortly cause it to happen. Therefore, Pharaoh should look for a man both discreet and wise to put in charge of the land of Egypt. Pharaoh should do this, and he should appoint supervisors over the land to receive a 20% tax on the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should gather all the food produced these good years coming up and set aside grain under the supervision of Pharaoh to be used for food in the cities, and they should store it. This will be the land's food supply for 7 years of famine that will come over the land of Egypt, so that the land will not perish as a result of the famine. Verse 37, the proposal seemed good both to Pharaoh and to all his officials. Pharaoh said to his officials, can we find anyone else like him? The Spirit of God lives in him. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You will be in charge of my household. All my people will be ruled by what you say. Only when I rule from my throne will I be greater than you. Pharaoh said to Joseph, here I place you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Pharaoh took a signet ring off his hand and put it in Joseph's hand. He had him clothed in fine linen with a gold chain around his neck and had him ride in his second best chariot. And they cried before him, bow down. Thus he placed him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I, Pharaoh, decree that without your approval no one is to raise his hand or his foot in all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called Joseph by the name of Sisvat, not Paneach, and gave him as his wife Osnat, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. Then Joseph went out through all the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and then he left Pharaoh's presence and traveled through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the earth brought forth heaps of produce. And he collected all the food of these 7 years in the land of Egypt and stored it in cities. The food grown in the fields outside each city he stored in that city. Joseph stored grain in quantities like the sand on the seashore, so much that they stopped counting because it was beyond measure. 2 sons were born to Joseph before the year of the famine came. Osnat, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore them to him. Joseph called the firstborn Manasseh, causing to forget, because God has caused me to forget all the troubles I suffered at the hands of my family. The second he called Ephraim, fruit, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my misfortune. The 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of famine began to come, and just as Joseph had said, there was famine in all lands, but throughout the land of Egypt there was food. When the whole land of Egypt started feeling the famine, the people cried to Pharaoh for food, and Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, go to Joseph and do what he tells you. The famine was all over all the earth, but then Joseph opened up all the storehouses and sold food to the Egyptians, since famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all countries came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain because the famine was severe throughout the earth. All right, we're going to stop there. Let's see. What? Right here. You cannot. I don't know what that is. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So, go back to verse 1. Let's see what Rashi has to say to this. Okay. Well, first, before we go into Rashi, so we just went through the whole ordeal of him coming out of prison and now head of Egypt, except for Pharaoh. Which, by the way, what does Pharaoh mean? I believe it means king. Pharaoh's a king. Yeah. All right. Okay. It happened at the end of 2 years to the day. Now, when we're talking Rashi, just remember that we do have a different English words that are going to be used in this translation, right? Because we've talked about it many times before. I know I keep on repeating it, but it doesn't go one for one with translations from Hebrew to English. Okay, so you're going to have different things.
I'm thinking Rashi actually went from Hebrew to French to English, didn't it?
Well, I mean, we know that Rashi went from, he was Hebrew and French. I don't think he spoke English.
That's what I'm saying, so then they went from Hebrew to French, and now they translated from French to English.
Oh, you're saying double translation? No, because Rashi actually wrote in Hebrew.
Okay,
He had his own script. It was called the Rashi script. So he wrote in Hebrew. Like his
yeah,
writings were in his famous font,
yes.
his famous script. So, but did he write in French too? Oh, I'm sure he did. I mean, I'm sure he maybe did his own translation from Hebrew to French. He would use old French words to try to help explain some Hebrew words. And to us, it just confuses us even more half the time because it's French.
Because we don't speak French.
Because we don't speak French, right? Okay.
What do you
I do,
mean?
I say croissant.
What do you mean he had his own script?
Like a font.
He had his own font. Okay, so I'm going to show. It's kind of hard to tell on on my camera phone thing, whatever this is that you see. He has. Let me make sure I get it right. Yeah, that's it. He has his own font. It's different looking. Okay, and he created his own font for his own writing, to speed up his writing, basically, to make his writing more efficient, so he can write faster, according to him.
Oh, like a shorthand almost.
Yeah, it's almost like a shorthand, but it's not, because he still does every letter. Let's just say, like, for example, his shin. We know his shin, when we look at your average shin that we look, it's up and down, right? His shin is more tilted to the side, so when he's writing. A lot of his chetz and his, I said shins, but his lameds. You can tell what they are, but what really throws people off are the shins, because the shins are just thrown off onto the side, and so it looks more like an E than, say, a W in our script. But yeah, so it's his script, and that's why we're talking about. So normally he wrote. Rashi lived in France, right? That's where he lived. And so he spoke French, naturally. But he wrote Hebrew, he wrote commentaries on all of Tanakh. So, anyway. Okay, so it happened at the end of 2 years to the day. Pharaoh was dreaming that behold, he was standing over the canal. Thank you, Rebson. Yeah, Rashi lived around 100 to 1100 CE, Common Era. Yes. 1000 to 1100. Thank you. All right. And it happened at the end. So the word Mikeitz, right, means end, is to be understood. as onkelos, Targum onkelos, renders it at the end. All right. Over canal. Okay. So here's interesting. We see river, but in this we see that the other translation actually says Nile River. Here in Rashi's translation, he was standing over the canal, and the canal was in quotes. So over the canal, right? All other rivers are not called canals. Only the Nile River. Okay? For all of the land is made up into many man-made canals, and the Nile goes up into them and waters them, i.e., fills the canals with water. Because rains do not regularly fall in Egypt as they do in other lands. All right, so let's get the idea here and kind of understand. Egypt doesn't get a lot of rain. Back then, not now, right? But Egypt always was not always, but throughout history, Egypt always was some type of a powerhouse of some sort by government, culture, army, whatever. And the reason is why? The Nile River, and that's why. And the Nile River is actually a river that flows which way?
North.
Yes, from south to north, which is kind of odd because a lot of rivers just flow north to south. Take the Mississippi River, for example. How does that flow? North to south. But the Nile River flows south to north, and it comes from the south of it, which is like today's Ethiopia and that area where there's mountains and rain, and so the water flows down into Egypt from the Nile. It flows down into Egypt via the Nile. And so back then, what they did was that they made canals for the Nile River to flow into to water the gardens, to make their food and make them to the agricultural powerhouse that they were at the time. And so they called the Nile the canal. So that's where you get that from, right? And even Joseph, when he was head of Egypt, did some, we would say, infrastructure work, if you will, to Egypt. Made canals and so on and so forth, as well as storing grain, because we're obviously reading that part. Okay.
They did build canals, but the real importance was the fact that the rainy season made the river flood.
Right, in the rainy
If the
season.
river didn't flood, that meant there would be starvation the next year.
We're talking about like the floodings from the rivers, from the rains up
Right.
down south.
It would saturate the land with
It's
water, which
yes.
would help it then throughout the dry season to grow crops and whatnot.
Right.
So they do irrigate, but that's like a stopgap measure. Or
Yes.
End of season kind
Right.
of thing.
So what we're talking about here is that the Nile would periodically, almost, kind of predictably, like certain times during the year, would flood the farmlands to help grow crops, for example, so it can water it, right? And you had canals for watering, which was more of a secondary measure versus the primary flooding events during the year. That's what we were just discussing, to help water the area, right? Because Egypt wasn't known for having raining, but they were known for their infrastructure and how to predict the land, the rainy season. Right, just like in Israel, even today, we can have an idea of when a rainy season is, right? When you're looking at your Amidah, right? When the wind will blow and the rain will fall. Why? When does the rain happen? The former and latter rains. What happens? It happens during the spring and happens during the fall in that time frame. And it doesn't really rain a whole lot in between.
And that's why the significance of the dream, the cows coming out of the Nile River, shows that's where the problem is going to be.
Oh, so you're talking about the lack of water?
Yeah.
Okay, so like we're talking about the cows coming out of the Nile.
Nile's not going to flood.
The Nile. So, back to the canal. what Rashi was saying. Rashi is saying the canal, which is referred to the Nile. Okay. All right. So for all the land is made up into many man-made canals, and the Nile goes up into them and waters them and fills them with water, the canals, because rains do not regularly fall in Egypt as they do in other lands. All right. Verse 2. Moving on. Of beautiful appearance. So when we're talking about verse 2, when behold, out of the canal there was emerged 7 cows of beautiful appearance and robust flesh. See, that sounds better than sleek. I'm just saying, that just sounds better. Robust, yes. Better words.
Robust is the fat.
Robust is the fat, right? You know, okay. That's what I'm, robust. Yes. Okay, I have beautiful appearance. It is a sign for the days of abundance, right? We kind of figured this out in the text. When people appear nice to one another, for people are not miserly toward one another. So what Rashi's saying here is not only is this as the cows of beautiful appearance and robust flesh, what I'm trying to make, lost my train of thought. The robust flesh. Oh, the people, when everything's in good standing, and everybody's got money and plentiful food and yada, 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 all that type of stuff, everybody's nice to each other, willing to give. Yeah, everything's great. They're not, when stuff happens, like we're going to discuss, right? So, as we move on in verse 2. In the swamp, so in the marshland, right? And that's basically what they were talking about. It's just they came up out of the swamp, right? Verse 3, so we're in verse 3. Behold, 7 other cows emerged after them out of the canal, of poor appearance and gaunt flesh. And they stood next to the cows on the bank of the canal. Okay, so in the gaunt flesh, it means thin. Well, we kind of figured that one out, but we're just seeing, trying to listen to what Rashi has to say. Now, when he says, "And the cows of ugly appearance and gaunt flesh ate," right? And when we're talking about they ate, it is a sign that all the joy of the abundance will be forgotten in the days of the famine, right? No one is going to remember the days of the good times. Everybody's just going to be remembering and be like, "Oh yeah, I remember. It's famine. Woe is me." All right. So now we're going to verse 5. So now we're talking about the second dream, right? We're talking about the stalks of grain, right? So verse 5 in Rashi's translation, he fell asleep and dreamt a second time, and behold, 7 ears of grain were sprouting on one stalk, healthy and good. Okay. On one stalk, it's pretty much, it is what it is, healthy and beaten. All right, so in Old French, and this is what Rashi, as hasledis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that French correctly. This is rendered by the Targum Onkelos as banged by the south wind, like the wind was beating the stalk or the actual ear of grain, which is similar to a door banging shut, right? So it's just banging shut all the time, by the way. Okay. And behold, verse 7, then the thin ear swallowed up the 7 healthy and full ears, and Pharaoh woke, and behold, a dream. Okay. So, and behold, a dream, right? So in this translation, it's a little bit different. It sounds different, right? So when we're looking here in verse 7, then Pharaoh woke up and realized it had been a dream. That is from the CJB, it's a complete Jewish Bible. This is from Rashi's translation, with the English translation of Rashi. It says here, and Pharaoh awoke, and behold, a dream. Okay. So it's like that behold was exclamation point, dash, a dream. So when it says that, it says, and behold, an entire dream had been completed before him, and he required interpreters for it. So in other words, pretty much you know when the dream ended. Okay. Verse 8, and it was in the morning, and his spirit was agitated. So, there's ruach. Okay. When we're looking here, his spirit was agitated, right? It is rendered by Targum Onkelos. His spirit was stirred, shaken about inside him like a clapper of a bell. So we all know what a bell is, right? Well, let's see on this. Yeah, okay, the clapper of a bell. You got your bell, right? You got your bell that we understand. Think Liberty Bell or whatever, whatnot, right? You got a bell, and then what you have a clapper that kind of dings the sides. Okay. His spirit was stirred like that clapper inside of a bell.
It was all shook up.
He was all shook up. Oh, Jesse. No.
All shook up.
Don't you guys get started on me. Nope.
You would have an Elvis man.
No. Stop it. All right. So shaking about inside him like the clapper of a bell. So we're going to move on. But of Nebuchadnezzar it says, and his spirit agitated itself. For there were two causes of agitation. One was about forgetting of the dream. He was agitated about that. And the concealment of his interpretation. While here, Pharaoh remembered his dream, but is agitated only because he didn't know what it meant. Right? So what Rashi did was to give an example, two examples, right? You have Pharaoh as one, and then you have Nebuchadnezzar as another. Right? They both were agitated by the dreams that they had. And if you look at the Tanakh and about Nebuchadnezzar, in his dream, right? So there was Nebuchadnezzar's dream, or what he was agitated or stirred, was that he's worried about forgetting and the interpretation thereof. That's Nebuchadnezzar.
He was worried that he was going to forget it?
Yes.
Or he couldn't remember the dream?
He was worried about forgetting it,
Okay.
as well as,
I can't remember the story.
right, so, right, and his spirit is agitated itself, right?
Some of the things are vivid and some of
Yes.
the
Yep.
things are like,
Right. So there's two causes of agitation, and this is Rashi talking about Nebuchadnezzar. One was the forgetting of the dream, and the other is the concealment of its interpretation. That was for Nebuchadnezzar. For Pharaoh, it was only one. It is the interpretation thereof, because he could remember the dream.
Now, was this the same situation where Nebuchadnezzar called the magicians, but he wouldn't tell them the dream?
Yes.
Tell him?
yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe because he couldn't remember totally.
I think it was a test.
I think it was a test too, but.
Because you tell somebody your dream, they can make up whatever interpretation.
Which I'm surprised these guys didn't do that.
Yeah. All right. All right. So, good job, Sean. Oh, it's your bar mitzvah parsha. Nice. Okay. As we continue, so make sure here, Pharaoh related is, Pharaoh summoned, make sure I get this right, still in 8, and it was in the morning, and his spirit was agitated, as we just discussed. So he sent and summoned all the necromancers of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh related his dream to them, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. So that they couldn't interpret the dreams, which is a kind of a different translation from the complete Jewish Bible, because it just says he summoned all the magicians.
Well, they don't use the word necromancer in CBJ that I can think of.
A necromancer, yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we're looking at here, the necromancers, let's discuss this well, at least Rashi discusses this, okay? Those who disturb bones of the dead, right? That's a necromancer, according to Rashi. For they consult bones to discern the future. Okay? In the Aramaic language, he's talking about bones. And in the Mishnah, we find a phrase, a house that is filled with bones. Right? So we're talking about, this is the same Hebrew word that they're discussing. Okay. So these people, these necromancers, these magicians, if you will, use bones to try to determine fortune teller, yeah, the diviners, soothsayers. Yes. All right.
They just use bones in their practice.
Yeah, exactly. So 9. So well, actually, there was no one, before going to 9, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. So these wise men, necromancers, they did not interpret the dreams, but actually what Rashi's saying is they did interpret them, but not for Pharaoh. Right, so here's the deal. Here's what Rashi's saying about this. Right, they could interpret them. They at least they thought, not for Pharaoh. Meaning, for their voice did not enter Pharaoh's ears. For the, these magicians, if you will, for their voice did not enter his ears. I.e., he did not accept what they had to say. Right, so they said they tried to make up stuff, and what did they try to make up? Right. So, because Pharaoh did not have peace of mind with their interpretation they would say, 7 daughters shall you father, and 7 daughters shall you bury. That was their interpretation, one of their interpretations of Pharaoh, which Pharaoh would say, no, I will not take that. Okay. So, verse 11. We still have now Pharaoh talking to the cupbearer, if you will. And we dreamt a dream then on the same night, I and he, meaning the cupbearer and the baker, each according to the interpretation of his dream, did we dream, right? And there, verse 12, with us was a youth, a Hebrew, a slave of the chamberlain of the butchers. We related it to him, and he interpreted our dreams for us, and each in accordance with the dream did he interpret. Okay. Pharaoh said, "Nee." Oh, that's funny. The Rebinson was saying Pharaoh said, "Nee." Nee, N-E-E. I was trying to be funny, and Rebinson is messing with me. What? Yeah. What is? Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought it was. That's Russian. Yeah, I know. I know that was Russian, right? But still. Okay, all right.
I thought she was referring to Monty Python.
Monty Python. Nee. Maybe that's exactly what she's saying. Okay.
What she's saying.
Yeah. All right.
Monty Python fan.
She is a Monty Python. Okay. We're talking about here, verse 11, according to the interpretation of his dream, a dream that was fit for interpretation, that was interpreted for us and resembled the interpretation. That sounds like a lot of words of interpretation. So basically what he's saying was that the interpretation of the dreams of the cupbearer and the baker
Panned out.
fit with the dream itself.
Right, yeah.
If you were talking about the necromancers or the magicians' interpretation, as Rashi says, of the 7 daughters of Pharaoh and then the 7 daughters dying, didn't fit with the dream, itself. It just was like, you just made this up with 7s.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't even fit what you're trying to say. How can, okay.
You're making no sense.
You're not making any sense, right? Where here, the cupbearer telling Pharaoh, hey, look, what he interpreted made sense with the dreams that we dreamt. All right, so verse 12, a youth, a Hebrew, a slave. Curses are the wicked, for their goodness, i.e. the good deeds they do, is not complete. He mentions Joseph in demeaning terms. Okay, so what Rashi's saying here is the cupbearer's terms that he used were demeaning. Okay? So, a youth, by this cupbearer or chamberlain, meant a fool. A youth in his days, you know, if you have a teenager, you're kind of dumb and young.
Yep,
A fool, if you will.
immature and foolish.
And not fit for a position of greatness. Okay? A Hebrew, he is not even familiar with our language, right? So he's saying, or what this cupbearer is saying here is when he listed the attributes of Joseph, he was a youth, meaning he was young, and, you know, not necessarily
Yeah.
capable of being of greatness of any type. He was a Hebrew. He didn't speak our language. He's not of us.
He's a foreigner.
Foreigner, sure. And he is not familiar, a slave, right? And it is written in the protocols of Egypt that a slave may not rule and may not even wear princely garments. So that's what he meant by a youth, a Hebrew, a slave of the chamberlain of the butchers.
Yeah, he stigmatized him in the most negative.
Yeah,
you could.
he's like, yeah, I got somebody who can dream. He's not that great of a guy, but he did actually dreamed it right. Or he interpreted my dream right. How about that?
I would have an alternate view of that.
What is your alternate view?
My alternate view is everything he said is true. He was young, he was a Hebrew, and he was a slave.
Yes.
So you don't want to build someone up to Pharaoh and have him come in and it's not what you said.
Right. So he doesn't want
So
to make him out to
so
what he's
lower-
not.
Yes,
Under
exactly.
promise,
Under
over
promise and over deliver.
Under promise and over deliver. So he did that. He
And
did.
if it goes wrong, then he can
not
always
my
say,
fault.
I told you he was a
He's
slave.
just a
You know, all I did was told you what happened. I didn't try to, you know,
So what you're saying was he was speaking the truth,
yes,
Yes.
right? But
perhaps cautiously.
as Rebinson would say,
Been in trouble once before and almost had his head on the chopping block.
the Rebinson just said, and it's true, right? In Slade Henson has said as well, Lashon Hora,
Yes.
or Loshan Hora. You're welcome, sir. Good Shabbos. Is actually words spoken against somebody that are factual. Right? If you're evil speech, right? Evil speech, like Lashon Hora, or Loshan Hora, is evil speech against a person that's factual.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
You're tearing them down.
You're tearing them down, but it's true.
And that's what
Like,
you can say.
right? It's true. That's what we're.
Why would he be tearing him down? If he wants to do harm to him, he'd just not even mention it.
Well,
He
you,
didn't even mention him to Pharaoh for 2 years, so.
He forgot about it.
he forgot about it. But you're.
That's another thing is that if you build him up, then you question, well, why haven't you said anything till now? Whereas if you say, well, he's this lowly fellow, that's why I forgot, you know, he's a nobody.
But what you're saying is right, but you're also agreeing with what I just said. It's because it's evil speech. You're still talking smack about the man, but it's true. It's true though. It's like, yeah, a young Hebrew
I would say
slave.
you're talking smack if you intend harm, which I don't see that he intends harm to Joseph by bringing this
Well,
to
it
Pharaoh's attention. Just the opposite.
well, when we're talking about evil speech, Lashon Hara, I mean, you're talking bad.
It's your intentions.
Well, I mean, your intention, but as far as like if you're talking bad about somebody, I mean, it's you're still talking bad about it because when you're talking about bad intention or a malicious intention, right? That intention is there even if it's slight. For example, you're saying
The intention that matters.
it's the intention that matters, right? But my point is that his intention of his words of Lashon Hara, right, wasn't like what I'm trying to find words that work. You were saying it would CYA, so if he failed into it, right?
yeah,
That's where the maliciousness comes in.
But
It's slight, but it still works.
it may be very slight.
Does the rest of what Rashi says
See, I've got another blurb here of Rashi that follows in there. That says, Rashi assumes that the Chamberlain chose these words carefully in order to stigmatize Joseph because it is an axiomatic that evil people act in line with their base character,
Okay.
is what Rashi said.
Okay.
That's why I wonder if he's includes there or gives that for you there.
Well, let's see. It doesn't state when you're talking about that exact verse.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I don't have that. I don't have that in my section.
It's still in verse 12.
Yeah, I don't have that in my section. But anyway, so just continue and end. Lashon hara is evil speech that's true. Motzi shem ra is evil speech that is false. Two different terminologies, right? So if you're going to say something like, say something bad about you, let's just say, and it's like way outlandish, and it's not even true, right? That's motzi shem ra, and that's a lie. You're lying and speaking bad, right? And then lashon hara is when you're speaking truth, but still speaking in a negatively to a person. Okay, moving on. Okay, according to the dream, close to its contents. Verse 13, he restored to my post. He refers to Pharaoh, right? So when we're talking about verse 13, I'm going to repeat it. And it was that just as he interpreted for us, so did it happen. He, meaning Pharaoh, restored to my post, and him, meaning the baker, he, meaning Pharaoh, hanged. A lot of words, but when you see here, when I read it, you can see where it kind of makes sense why he said that. And it was that just as he interpreted for us, so did it happen. Me, he restored to my post, and him he hanged. Just trying to separate who's who and what's what. Okay. Okay, so restored to my post, he refers to Pharaoh. Pharaoh had become incensed at his servants. See now that this is a verse with abbreviated language which does not specify who restored the Chamberlain. He's explaining the me, he thing. Okay. All right, so it doesn't need to specify because this is the story. Everybody knows Pharaoh did this. Okay. Verse 14. So Pharaoh sent and summoned Joseph, and they rushed him from the pit. And he shaved his hair and changed his clothes, and he came to Pharaoh, right? And so here we go. From the pit, which this is our translation, right? It was what it was.
Just says
Dungeon.
The dungeon, right? So from the pit, which is the Rashi's English word for it. This means from a prison. See onkelos for that one. Which is made as a type of hole in the ground. Similarly, any instance of the word which is I lost my place again, which is the instance of a beit, vav, resh, right? In Scripture, it means a hole, even if there's no water in it. Meaning it could be a reference to a cistern. So in other words, this pit was like an empty cistern, meaning a hole which was up at the top. That was his cell, if you will, according to Rashi. You can see here Leviticus 11:36, Jeremiah 6:7, and 1 Chronicles 11:17 for the same word, which means well or cistern as well. Well as well. It could mean a cistern. Okay. So basically his cell was a hole in the ground, kind of like a cistern, and this hole was above him, so he couldn't really get out of it.
Just because he ruled over the whole jail didn't mean he was living high on the hog.
Yeah, he didn't have a first-class prison cell, if you will.
No, with the window.
Yeah, first class.
He was back in the cistern.
He was back in the cistern every day. All right.
Here's the whole new when somebody says
brother
this
and
place is
sister.
a hole
Hmm?
in the road.
All the brethren were this cistern.
All the brethren were-
I'm going to keep on moving. All right. So he shaved his hair out of respect for the royalty, right? Because he probably didn't look that great. And so you heard a dream to interpret it. This means you listen to and understand a dream to interpret it. So we're talking about the idea of hearing. You hear an expression of comprehension and listening. Okay. Literally, Joseph heard, and literally, whose language you will not hear. Right. So verse 16, Joseph, and this is Rashi, Joseph answered Pharaoh saying, "That is beyond me. God will respond to Pharaoh's welfare." So basically, that is beyond me. The wisdom to interpret the dreams is not mine, is what Joseph is saying. Okay. Rather, God will respond. That is, he will put a response in my mouth for Pharaoh's welfare. Not necessarily for his own, it's for Pharaoh's welfare.
Well, he had a chance to take credit, and he gave credit to God.
Yes, he did. He gave credit. So verse 19, this is where the repetition of the dreams that Pharaoh is telling Joseph. So scrawny in 19, which is the word then, behold, 7 other cows emerged after them, haggard and of every poor-formed and emaciated flesh. See, this is better English words than the first translation. My personal opinion, anyway. So basically, it means haggard. It's scrawny. We understand what that is. An emaciated flesh, lacking meat, right? It's super thin. Okay. Withered. So it's like wood without moisture. Very dry wood is what he's trying to say. Hard as a rock. See here. There's nothing in them. For when we're talking about the husks, when they're emptied of the kernel, there's nothing in them.
It was interesting that they added a little detail to the second dream, or the second
When he was retelling it.
Oh, no.
retelling.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Pharaoh had to. Otherwise, he would have been taken out and slaughtered for heresy.
Oh.
He could not say what his dream actually really said. He was unable to in that
Oh.
culture.
Oh, very good. So Raj,
I understand what you're saying there.
so-
The
Oh,
detail
yeah,
I'm thinking
I
of,
know you don't because I've never explained it here.
okay.
okay.
The detail I'm talking about is the fact that after the skinny cows ate the fat ones, they didn't look unique.
Yes, yes. And Rashi is going to say something to that.
Wasn't mentioned before. Is that what,
Right.
is that what you're talking about?
No, he's talking about something else.
You know,
It's
like
when
for
bringing
instance,
bad news to the, like, people who brought bad news to Hitler, they were slaughtered.
well, no, it has nothing to do with that. It's how the dream,
We're talking about what really Slade is talking about a
Pharaoh and the river.
interpretation that Pharaoh had about the dream and the way he explained it, which we're not going to explain here because it's too long to explain.
But that'll be for, I'll try to talk about that next week.
We're just going to move on. I'm still in verse 23. So there are lack of kernel. All right. So 7 years and 7 years. Okay, so verse 26. Okay, the 7 good cows, they are 7 years, and the 7 good ears, as in ears like this, they are 7 years. It is one dream. Okay, so 7 years and 7 years. Rashi says all of them, i.e. both the 7 years represented by the good cows and 7 years represented by the good ears, are nothing but the same 7 years. What he's trying to say is even though there are 2 dreams with 2 7, that's okay. When we're talking about 2 dreams with 2 7 good years, or like good years of the cows representing good years and the full grain representing good years, it's actually representative of one set of 7. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
It's the same 7 years.
It's the same 7 years, right? You have 2 dreams that have 7 good times, right?
Oh,
He says,
But they're all
So
just
the
one.
dream is the same. No, now I understand. I thought
Right.
you were saying the good years and the bad years all totaled 7.
Oh, no.
Okay.
You had 2.
No, I got you.
Okay. All right. Very good. But nothing but so they're the same 7 years. As for the dream being repeated a second time, this is done because the matter is ready to be fulfilled, right? So the matters was talking about, what Rashi's saying here is that since it was done twice, it was about to happen quickly. As Joseph explained to Pharaoh in the end of his interpretation.
Is this where the rabbis get if something's repeated in Scripture, it's important?
Well, it says it's going to.
Well, according to Pharaoh, we'll answer that question later. According to Pharaoh, according to Joseph, these 2 dreams, at least here, represent that something's going to happen really quickly.
Okay.
Well, the matter's been fixed.
Yes, matter's been fixed, so it's going to happen.
Maybe gonna happen.
It's going to happen. Okay. So about the 7 good years, it says, he has told to Pharaoh because it was to be fulfilled close in time to Joseph's statement to Pharaoh. But about the 7 years of famine, it says, he has shown to Pharaoh because the matter was remote and distant. Right? So the terminology that is saying here is that he told to Pharaoh about the good years that it was going to happen really soon, like really quick. And then it was shown, there's a different type of terminology to say it's kind of it's more distant. We're talking about verbiage here. We're talking about Hebrew and the words that are being used.
So in one way it's soon, but in another way it's not? Is that
Yes,
what you're saying?
exactly.
How can it be soon and not soon?
The different types of words used in the language and the grammatical usage
No,
of.
but how can that actually be the case?
Right, so when we're talking about as he told to Pharaoh, told meaning it's going to happen soon. And then it was shown to Pharaoh, meaning shown it was distant. Okay.
There was gonna have to be a time of period for them to build
All
all
right.
the storage things.
Before the 7 good years? Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, yeah.
There's gonna be a stretch of time.
Well, and soon is a squishy kind of word. That depends
Okay.
on what you mean by that.
So is the word cute.
So,
We use it
so we're going to
Speak.
I'm going to verse 30, and all the abundance in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. This is the interpretation of the swallowing, right? So when they're being swallowed up, the abundance will be forgotten, and the abundance will not be known. And the reason why we know the abundance will not be known, according to Rashi, verse 31, this is the interpretation of, but it was not apparent that they had come inside them, meaning it was not apparent that these skinny cows ate the fat cows, because if you assume that, if you're going to eat a lot, your stomach's going to grow at least a little bit. You would think. And these cows don't show that at all. It's like they ate something and they're still, super thin and gaunt.
Like zombies.
Like zombies, yes, there you go, because zombies don't get fat. Okay. Okay, and so
You see a lot of emaciated children, their stomachs are swollen, you could tell if they ate a nickel on that.
you know what? I am going to stop here.
Hey, I just want to make a point.
What's up?
I just noticed for the first time that after Joseph gives the dream, he throws in what needs to happen.
Yeah.
That's not part of the interpretation.
No,
He just
no.
says, he gives this huge plan of
Right.
what has to happen.
Yes.
And that's why everybody listening to him said, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
We don't want to be in charge of that.
Oh, well, Rashi does. I mean,
He was
It would-
planning right then and there. It's like, this is what has to happen.
right, and we're talking about the what Joseph was requiring of Egypt to do to go through this time, this famine is going to happen. But here's the thing about it is that Rashi says there may have been a few more things Joseph was asking Egypt to do that they may not have been happy about, and it had to deal with the men. But we're not going to discuss it any further. We ain't got no time for that. Shabbat shalom, everyone.